A very, very, very warm welcome to our product book club, yet another review. And this time it's week number 3 out of 52. Yay, we crushed 2. That's awesome. So today we are going to review this amazing book called the Lean Product Playbook. And our sprinters have kind of put together something awesome for you. And the book list, as you all know, has been published. Here is our 52-week schedule. I know that's crazy, but we are treating it as a challenge to go through it week after week. And all of them are mostly product books. Product makers must read them. 1 week is product book, product management related book. The other week is typically product design related, but both are important. So we generally do something called as a 10 by 30, which means whatever the size of the book is, whether it is 1,000 pages or 10 pages, we try and take 10 big ideas from the book and distill it under 30 minutes for you. If you don't have, typically it takes about 6 to 7 hours to read a book. And if you don't have the time, this is the best way to do it, right? You can go and read it for yourself. That's the best that can happen. The second best is to tune in into a 10 by 30. This is a homegrown method, and we try and give the maximum benefit to all of you through this. So today, the 10 by 30 for Lean Product Playbook is ready, and over to you, sprinters.
Welcome, everyone. As Karti mentioned, that this is the third book review for Lean Product Playbook by Dan Olson. But before we move into the discussion or review of the book, let me introduce you our team, Ganesh, Kalyani, KB, Kiran, and myself. Guys, please wave so that everyone can see you. Okay, now let's dig into why this book. So we all know building product is difficult. It's hard. But more difficult, what we have understood is building products which customer loves, right? So now to solve this problem, we found this, Lean Product Playbook. I hope all of you are aware about Eric Ries's Lean Startup approach. So we all understand the high level concept, but the challenge what we have faced is how to adopt it, why and how to do it. And that's where Dan Olson's book, the Product Lean Playbook, it comes into picture, which help us to go step by step, guide us, advises us, how we can successfully build product market fit.
So in a nutshell, this book is a step-by-step guide and kind of a roadmap to achieving what we call PMF, product market fit, understanding the problem, then building the minimum viable product, then taking feedback, testing, then learning by iterating, then achieving PMF. So these are the steps involved in the entire book, and we shall be digging deeper into all of these areas step by step through this presentation. So what is the product market fit? It's like that one big goal that every product aims to achieve someday. But sadly, we don't really have a clear milestone for it. Neither, as Dan says, it's not really a true false statement. It's not a yes or a no thing that this product has a product market fit. It's a little more complicated than that. So that's why Dan created an actionable framework. And this is what the book is about. This framework or this product market fit test is called a product market fit pyramid. Out of all the shapes in the world, this could have been a square, this could have been a circle. Why a pyramid? Why pyramid in cases? The idea of a pyramid is building step by step, right? So when you build a pyramid, you build each layer on top of the other layer, right? As per Dan, the product market fit consists of about 5 layers. And Dan says you need to get each layer right enough to be able to say that you have achieved product market fit. The first layer or the first section of this pyramid is the market, and then comes your product. So you build your product on top of the market layer. So in the market layer, we have 2 layers. One is your target customer. Your target customer, their needs, their pain points, all of their problems lie in this layer or in these 2 layers. So first you identify your target customer, then you identify what are their needs that are being not being met, and not. So then you bring in your value proposition, then you bring in your feature set, then you bring design your UX, and you build all of the solution on top of this problem space or the market space. This is the whole idea of product market fit. The idea number 2 from the book is problem space versus solution space. Why do we even need a differentiation between this problem space and a solution space? Why two different spaces? Why is it important? As Dan says it in the book, customers do not really care about your solutions. Customers care about their problems. So it's very crucial to understand what problems these customers are facing and address your solutions accordingly. Let's dig a bit deeper into the solution space and the problem space. Let's see what the solution space is about. The solution space is a space where we all live in. All the products we see, all the products we use and love exist in this space. So it's easier for us and it's natural for us to relate to this space and think in this space. But all of the problems that you see, why I'm starting with a solution space, because it's easier for us to relate to it. This is a space that we are all living in. All the products that we're using belong to this space. So it's natural for us to think in this space. But if you question, how did we build all this? How did we actually build all of the products, all of the services that we're using? The problem space is where our customer problems lie, or their needs lie. This is where our products ideas are formed. By digging deeper into this space, we can find out true dying customer problems that we can really solve for. This is problem space and solution space seems a little bit complicated. So let's look at some examples and figure out. So we all remember this scene from 3 Idiots, right? Where Virusas Tripudi shows this space pen and our hero has a question. Sir, astronauts ne pencil ka istemal kyun nahi kiya? So if you think about this scene, where did that thought come from in Rancho's head? It's because Rancho was thinking in the problem space. He was trying to dig a bit deeper into what the true problem was. So since it's not very intuitive for us to think in the problem space and asking very fundamental questions, how do we go about this? How do we think about the problem that has been given to us? So if you really see what the space pen does, it's a problem. What is the problem that the space pen addresses? It's the problem of writing in space, right? So if you dig deeper into this problem, then you will realize you can dig deeper into this problem and question, why do we even need a writing instrument that works in space, right? So by digging deeper into the problem, maybe you could design a solution, something like a tape recorder or something that will be a way to address the current needs. We have a product called ClearTax. So that the fundamental problem that ClearTax solves is to prepare and file your taxes. But all of us have filed taxes before ClearTax existed, right? How did we do all of this? We maybe did the accounting by ourselves. We used pen and paper to do the math, or maybe we knew someone who was an auditor, or maybe we had a professional who did the service for us, right? But all of these solutions, all of these methods are solving the problem, right? So then why are we even building ClearSpace? Why are we bothered about this? Try to find out what they should be building. They dive deeper into the problem space, and then only they realize there were a few more problems which were not really addressed. Pen and paper definitely helped in preparing taxes, but there were needs like checking taxes, saving tax money paid, and filing taxes. These were needs that had no solution for in the market. And it's only by looking deeper into the space, ClearTax founders figure out that these needs. These are some of the things that we can build our value proposition on. And had we not done that, the product wouldn't have been there. So it seems like it's a lot about customers, right? So how do you determine your target customers and how do you find out what their true problems are, right? So Kalyani will help us understand determining the target group.
So let's dig into the first step of Dan's book, that is target customers. Finding your target group is a lot like going for a fishing and catching your desired fish if you're lucky. Here, you, product innovator, are the fisherman, and you put a bait to your fishing hook. Your bait can catch different types of fish. Bait here is your product and fish here is your customer. So how do we know we get to the right target customers? No, we don't. And hence we assume who is our target customers for starters. And how do we assume customer? On what basis do we assume? There are various attributes to your target groups, and they can be categorized into these 4 attributes. demographics, which is gender, age, education, and many more points. Psychology, that is attitude, opinions, values, personalities, hobbies of the people. Behavior is more on the routines and patterns that they do follow in their daily life. Needs is something that motivates him or her to buy your product. So what do we do after we compile it into a persona? So here is an example of a persona, which is a visual one pager where you get an idea just looking at it, like who is your target customers. It has all the necessary information. Personas can be formulated after doing exhaustive market research and interviews. Though they are hypothetical, a persona is based on research rather than wishes. And do you think one persona is enough? You might need to create more than one personas to get better clarity. You can have personas with different lifestyle priorities. A CEO has a different set of priorities than an influencer. And you also have to revise the personas as you go ahead in the process. They're not fixated to the first draft you prepare. Start with the hypothetical persona, validate that hypothesis, do surveys, go to market, gather evidences, which will help you judge if your hypothesis was wrong or right. Tweak the hypothesis, revise it, and repeat till you find your target customers. So this is the big idea. Yesterday's delighters become today's performance features and tomorrow's must-have. But what exactly is Dan talking about? Customer needs can be divided into three categories. First is a must-have that does not bring additional satisfaction, but an absence can definitely bring a disappointment, dissatisfaction to the customer. For example, a petrol tank. It is a must when it comes to combustion vehicle. One cannot imagine a combustion vehicle without a petrol tank. So it's a must-have. Next in the categories is performance. Those are the core needs. Those are the USPs of your product. The value of those USPs is what motivates the customers to make a sound and best decision for themselves. Let's take an example here. Speed. We all want a high performance, good fuel efficiency vehicle. So that becomes a performance feature. And lastly, there are delighters. These are areas of innovations. User don't expect them, but a lack of them don't change your product, but it can generate a lot of satisfaction when added and can give you a competitive edge. Let's take an example of a delighter. So we all know how tough is the two-wheeler market, and Jupiter brought in two big advantages to the market. First was having the convenience of filling a petrol from front, where you can easily have a surveillance when filling up the tank. And this in turn has given them a huge area for storage, which is usually occupied by petrol tank. So this becomes a great delighter and is giving a lot of satisfaction to many Jupyter users. And all of this is bringing us to Kano model. Kano model shows us how these categories traject on scale of user satisfaction. You can see how a delighter can add customer satisfaction when basic needs are met, and is indifferent when basic needs are absent. As you can see the green line, in the top left quadrant, it has no indifference, and it projects higher when it is added. The second is performance trajectory, the blue line. It is very straightforward. The performance feature is directly proportional to user satisfaction. The better the performance feature, the higher is your user satisfaction. And lastly, the red line, which is a must-have, it is indifferent in a bottom left quadrant, because once it is met, it cannot cause any satisfaction, but can cause a lot of dissatisfaction when not met. How it goes down in the bottom left. Let's look at more examples. There were many, let's take an example of Google. There were many competitors for search engines when the technology was first created. There was Quill, Yahoo, and many more. But what differentiated Google? They all gave fresh, comparable amount of search results, but Google added relevance, which is a performance feature, which many of them tried to attempt. And there was speed and suggestions when it came to quick Google searches, which helped the users so get search results very easily, very quickly, rather. And lastly, let's look at another example. Um, so in you can see in the left side that there is a snack and treat cup holder available in Model T in 1920. It was just an add-on to the product, but then we can see how it was a performance set in the 1980s Ford, the middle picture, and now it has given a delight by adding it to the back seat custom travelers as well. So we can see how first image shows it was delighter. So yeah, yesterday's delighters become today's performance feature and tomorrow's must have.
After having all the information in hand, then this is the time to think about the MVP, which is minimum viable product. So what does exactly it means? So minimum viable product, it means by having a limited resources in hand, or even though if you have a humongous amount of resources, you still have to go ahead with the minimum amount of resources. And what do you mean by viable? So viable means the product that you make should be viable to the customers. So if you go in deep, what are the four major elements that you have to consider before you make any MVP? So these are the things that you can see here. There are two things again. So most of the times, if anyone thinks about minimum viable product (MVP), we always think about minimum resources. That is quite common. But when we come into the while making a product, so we also think a little bit conjuice in terms of thinking and also making the product. So the four elements are the functional, reliable, usable, and design. So what do you mean by functional? And the picture you can see here is the yellow color bar says that the functional is the most important thing. It should in the first picture you can see that the customer is trying to pull the car. But what is the exact functionality of the car? The car should move itself, and it should take the customer to the place that is desired by the customer. So you have to ensure your customer is as much functional as possible. It should not let down the major purpose of your product. So that is the functionality means. Yeah. So what is reliability here? So reliability is I want to bring up the example of Ola so that it will be easily understandable. So reliability is we have built a product which is Ola, which is in the initial phase, and customer is having an interview at morning 6:30 a.m. in the morning, for suppose, and customer is trying to book the cab, but customer should not receive that service is not available at the moment. Even though if you are at MVP stage, you have to ensure the customer blindly believe in your product and he goes to your product or service. You should be able to book the cab and he has to attend the interview. If you see the second picture, the amount of the trust they have between those two people is the maximum. Unless they have that reliability, they do not go and take this particular plunge, right? So this is the reliability. One more click. Yeah. So usability. I have an app in my hand, and of course it is functional, and of course it is reliable. The moment customer clicks, they book the cab. But the navigation and the easy to use should be very, very easier. Unless it's not easier, and there is a high probability that the customer might leave your product. It should not take a lot of amount or time to train the customer. It should be easily understandable and usable. Next, please. So design, and because it is MVP, we should not compromise on the design. So the first photo says it is not looking that great, right? It has multiple icons, the text and all. But if you see the second photo, you can see you can feel that experience of using the product. Just because it's MVP, you should not compromise on the design, and you have to ensure your MVP should have as good design as possible. So these are the major features of minimum viable product that you have to consider before you launch it into the to test the customers. So if you see, I think you can easily understand what is the difference between the first and the second one. This is not MVP. If you want to make any product, you have to start, as I said previously, so it should be usable. If you see the first photo, they have started with one wheel and two wheels, then the body of the car and the final car. If you go ahead and do this thing, and you will be never able to achieve the right product. But if you take the second example, you can see initially the skateboard, and you can see the flow of the product evolution, starting from the first one to skateboard to the last one, which is a car. Everything is usable, which is everything is functional. You can use it unless you use the product. You never know what exactly the feedback you would get from the customer. Yeah. So if you compare from the first slide to this slide, in the first slide, the yellow bar is at the functional, which is at the bottom of the pyramid. And if you see here, the yellow light has comprised of all the four elements. So MVP should have all the elements: functional, reliable, usable, and design. It says that all the four elements has equal importance, and we need to stick to this particular parameters.
Well, you have seen that we have already discussed about target customer, what's their need, and how to talk about the MVP, what to include and what not to. The next thing comes is what we learned about testing. I mean, a different approach of testing we learned in this book is, test, test, test. That means test with one set of customer, to be have a focus win. Then move on to the next one, then to the third one. So they call it as, Dan called it as wave of, customers, which with every wave you will get a feedback. And a silence means in every wave, if there is a silence for the your previous feedback, that means it's a progress. Nobody gonna say, oh, you have done a good job, but the silence is actually a trophy for you that you have improved on. So let's understand a very interesting approach of the type of testing needs to be focused on is, if you guys have seen Ofra, and I'm pretty sure everyone here in this forum must have seen Ofra's show, where she will call her guest, she will go into detail about their life, their culture, their work, and everything, because she wants to understand more in detail about a person whom she has called on. That's called as qualitative approach. Versus, if some of you remember the Star Trek character Spock, who used to take decision based on data, based on quantity, based on information. So which is like, more the information, more the data I have, the better I can take the decision, right? Qualitative is basically what Dan suggested is good if you are developing a new product, because that's the point where you want to understand your customer. You're looking at your customer. Quantitative is something where I would say you are already into, your product is already there, but you're adding more capabilities, more features, or looking for more opportunities. So that's where it comes up. Now, since you have already identified, the next thing to focus on testing was what proposed as by Dan is, how to find your target customer. You already heard from Kalyani on, how you can find your target customer based on persona, based on different attribute. Now, based on that, you can at least know what is your target customer, but how to find. Nobody is sitting outside your room or your house and say, I'm coming here, I'm going to test it. But what happens is that you can leverage your existing pool of customer. If that's not available, then there are surveys, forms, which you can post it on various websites where you can find a crowd of testers to test your product, like Amazon Mechanical Turk or a TaskRabbit. But let's say if your product is a little specific to a group of users, like executives or doctors, or maybe some sort of more salespeople, then go to conferences, meet them, and show your product. That's another area where you can find your target customers. Now we have identified the type of approach of testing. We have identified who's going to who's going to be a target customer. The next one is how we test it. That's very important. That's the core of it. Um, there are two ways which Dan has actually suggested us. One is moderate and the another is unmoderated. Moderate is what we usually prefer. Either we call our target customer to our test labs, to our office, or we go to their place, basically meeting face to face. because that's very important, where you can see what workflows, what steps, and what are their facial expressions. Are they angry? Are they irritated? That can actually help you to take as a feedback. Sometimes they call it silent feedbacks. The other way is a remote one, which we all are right now, the way we are doing this review, right? Similarly, you can call your customers over Skype, Zoom, and let them use your product again in front of you. But you can, even at times, you can record their actions and see if, I mean, usually customers are not comfortable but recording, but at least you can take notes while they're performing different tasks or different steps of using your product. The other one is an unattended one, which is little, you have to use it with little cautious, because that means you are not there. you know you have actually given to the users or your customers to test the product in your absence. So more important is the information or the document what you provide them is very crisp and clear, so that they can understand what the product is all about. But the positive side is you get a very fair and clear feedback, because there is no interruption, right? So this way you'll get a very clear information on the feedback which will be provided by your customer. So I want to give you one example of Buffer, who actually sends schedule tweets at a defined time. So what they did at the with their landing page when they started it, it's a very good example given by Dan, that they came up with two buttons as plan and pricing. And what they achieved out of it is, first, obviously, whenever the user will click any of this button, at the end it will say, provide your email ID, and then they'll say, oh, we'll come back, the product is coming soon. So it actually gave them a pool of their target customers for testing. Second, it gave them a pattern to identify what type of users are going to use which functionality. Are they interested in more price based, or are they looking for more free or easily available one? And the most important one was the conversion rate. Is it acceptable? Are they going to use the functionality or the product I'm building, or I should stop and go back to my product market fit pyramid and look again into what I'm building up? So these are the great examples where Dan actually helped us to explain how the testing, different approach of testing is to be done. But one important point which I've taken up from this book is, uh, product is like a baby for us, right? We love our product. We don't find any fault. So whenever we give it to anyone, we are like, oh, it's the best thing in the world. But when you're testing with your customers, don't be a product advocate. Just let them test it in their own way, with their own mindset, and take the feedback as it comes from them, because that's how you're going to be there in that pyramid what KBX started with.
We are here to talk about user experience, the tip of our product market pyramid, which should definitely have these factors. Product has to be useful, usable, findable, credible, desirable, accessible, and valuable. This whole thing comprised of a great UX.
Sorry about this. He actually has a function at home today, and he has been busy all day. And despite that, he has come for the review. So thank you so much for doing this, Kiran.
My first point about UX. So UX is all about bringing features and benefits to life for the customer. So they should definitely realize what how many decisions made in order to bring out a best UX for the customer to realize it's fully working functions and benefits with a good UX design. Right. Next slide, please. And at the same time, again, poor UX gets in the way, preventing users not to realize or understand the features or benefits we have indulged in our product, which can make customers life very miserable by delivering a poor UX design. And we use divergent thinking for ideation, like bringing a lot of different ideas to under one roof by converging it and evaluating all those ideas to bring our final product. So here is my favorite topic, right? Olson's law of usability. So as we can clearly see, how features are easily to operate for the customer that much users will get engaged with that particular product, and vice versa. The feature is so much difficult for the customers, they would definitely not be willing to engage with those features. So as we can see, the classic example here is GPRS versus our modern day browsing with 4G or 5G, right? So we can all relate to this, how much we struggled in the past, connecting to our internet on the mobile device using a GPRS 2G 3G. Now it's a fastening lightning fast 4G or 5G connection has given us so many opportunities browsing faster on our mobile devices. This is one of the classic examples for Olson's law of usability. So again, the 4 pointers here for UX design iceberg, where we start with a conceptual design, where we bring our concept uh, to work by designing a conceptual design, gathering all the concept to a target. And then comes information architecture, where our product information has to be handy, uh, goes handy with the customers as well. And then comes interaction design, which shows how product is interacting with customers and vice versa. They should be interacting live with the product, where they should not miss any pointers on the product. I'm talking about the customer's perspective here. Then finally we reach a tip of the iceberg, which is visual design. So considering all the bottom three design features, then we finally reach a visual design with color palettes and with icon symbols, and how lively we can make a product look like with having a great visual design. And these are two of very vital and important factors which play a very important role to design a great UX. Style guides and grid layouts, which are again considered to be the driving factors for having uh, consistent consistent UX design, right? Because style guides and grid layouts are the one who will fit our product into mobile device screen size as well. As we think now, the modern day products are more likely to fit our mobile screen size, where customers are finding very difficult with some products where they cannot navigate, or probably they won't have that feasibility to work on that product on their mobile screen, right? That is one of the considerable examples I just gave. That's why style guide and grid layout plays very important role, where product managers or product designers should think of the product which can fit easily on any resolution of the size. Finally, we have reached the principle page, where UX principles, while designing a great UX, right? These are the ones we should definitely consider and be mindful of, right? Firstly, Olson's law of usability, we have seen clearly how much that matters. And then creating a delight. Creating delight is something, we talked in the past already, how delight can make customers or bring that extra smile on the customer's face. And then addressing all the layers of a UX design iceberg, eventually ending up with a visual design. But we should also focus on the other three layers as well. Then focusing on consistency throughout the UX, by having fantastic style guides and the grid layout, which plays very important role for the consistency of our UX. And then we should definitely be mindful of a common design principles, such as Gestalt, hierarchy, composition, responsive design, etc. Then copy, definitely a part of UX, and also needs to be carefully considered. So these are the principles we should definitely carry forward and be mindful while we're designing a great UX.
So coming to the pivot, after you launch the product in the market, after while testing your product, so the cycle goes as like this. So you need to have an hypothesis and you need to build the product, followed by the measure the data, and you need to get some insights from the data, and you need to change your hypothesis based upon the data you receive. So here the catch is, if you do not make the right MVP on all the parameters, whatever we had discussed till now, there is a high probability that the data you receive also biased towards the MVP you design. So once you ensure your MVP is in the proper shape, then you launch the product in the market, and the data you receive, you should be carefully understand, because there are times that the data you receive is going to says that it is solving something else than the hypothesis that you have defined. So sometimes there are chances that the problem you decided to solve might get changed to something else, maybe some problem 2, 3, 4, and you should be carefully attend the data, whatever you receive, and based on the data, you need to change the hypothesis.
Now we have built the the product overall. We tested and we done everything, right? So everything what we did was in an iterative approach, right? So what Dan found was that agile is something close to what the way we are trying to build MVP, the way we are trying to test it. So when we are actually, now let's get into actually building the product which customers can use it, right? And that's where he advised us, to follow agile rather than waterfall. And why not waterfall? I'm not saying it's not good, but there are certain set of products for which definitely waterfall is advised. But here what has happened, what usually happens in waterfall is that you move from plan to development unless the previous phase is 100% complete. And by the time you deliver the product to the customer desire becomes the customer, for customer it becomes a disaster. So you lose your customer, you lose the faith, you lose the market, and definitely the time and effort what you have put in building that product. And that's where the agile comes into picture, in being more iterative to what we so far we have discussed about it, where you plan the customer requirements into small chunk of requirements which are very basically you're trying to break the unknown what we call it, right, into more refined, and then you build those small requirements into a manageable batch, right, which you can build them. And more you build the small pieces, it is easy to test, because it reduces the risk of introducing high, I would say, critical issues in the system. And even if there are issues in the system, you can easily fix them at that point of time. And obviously the best thing is you can release them to the customer can see the product which is in a usable form. So if you remember what Kiran was talking about, sorry, they're talking about the MVP rather than seeing the car at the end. Every piece in the MVP was talking about which is usable, and that's what agile is all about. It plan, build, test, release, get the feedback, improve it again. Whatever feedback you get, it put it back into the system, and be in iterative till you get the product what the customer is looking for. So ultimately, what Dan is suggesting us is to reduce the magnitude of negative experience as early as in the cycle. Now I'll hand it over to Ganesh for the next idea.
So coming to identifying how to identify your MVP successful, we have multiple tests and multiple metrics that we can define. But if you see broadly, these are the 5 steps that captures at least maybe 60 to 70% the essence of your product. Different products have different KPIs, but these are the macro level, the most important parameters. For example, if you're going to launch any website, for suppose, or if you're going to launch any service in the market, the first step you need to ensure is acquisition of the customer. So how do you ensure acquisition? So the moment you launch your website in the market, you have to encourage your customers to sign up as a first step. So after signing up to the website or the service, so the next step is activation. You need to ensure your customer participates in your service or product, that you have to ensure they do some action on your product. And after that, the third step is retention. Once the customer experiences your product, so if he retains and if he revisits your website or service again, that comes under retention, which is the most important thing. After retention, referral. If customer likes your product or service, so there is a high probability that he would refer to his colleagues or friends. Referral is something that which we can say that your product has some very good value. Because of that reason, the customer might refer your product to his friends. And the last thing is revenue. After ensuring all the 4 steps above, the last thing is revenue. So sometimes what happens is the revenue might come maybe before referral also, but This is the step-by-step procedure that you need to ensure your product achieves all the 5 steps. And this is the last slide that we are going to discuss. And after this, we are open for the questions.
Thank you so much, team. I know this book was more of a playbook, step by step, and there was so much information to cover, and hence we took 40 instead of 30 minutes.